To secure an entry-level government job, even a position as a peon, an Indian citizen faces a gauntlet of verification. You need validated educational degrees, multiple character certificates, and an unblemished background check. Yet the person who oversees the entire educational infrastructure of the country, the education minister, requires zero formal education to hold the office. A single minor police complaint will immediately disqualify a young applicant from civil service. The application is simply discarded. At the same time, an individual with active pending charges for extortion, kidnapping, or murder can legally file their nomination, run a campaign, and take a seat as a top lawmaker. How the world's largest democracy arrived at this point requires looking directly at the legal framework governing electoral eligibility. The republic operates on two distinct tracks. The millions who are governed must navigate a rigid, unforgiving system of qualifications. Those who govern walk an open path with almost no barriers to entry. The Indian Constitution sets the rules for political entry in Articles 84 and 173. A candidate must be a citizen, and they must meet the age minimums, 25 for the Assembly, 30 for the Council. There is absolutely no mention of educational attainment. While a government clerk must prove their proficiency with a university degree, a legislator drafting national policy needs only to prove they were born in the country and survived for 3 decades. During the drafting of the Constitution, this omission was entirely intentional. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar and the Constituent Assembly recognized that in a newly independent nation with low literacy rates, imposing strict educational filters would exclude the vast majority of the population from representation. Ambedkar assumed it was a temporary measure. He stated on the record that future legislatures would implement their own educational requirements when the time was right. 75 years later, the central government has never implemented those rules. A few states, like Rajasthan and Haryana, successfully introduced minimum criteria for local Panchayati Raj elections, but Parliament has continually refused to apply those standards to itself. The constitutional drafters expected the political class to morally evolve and self-regulate. Instead, the absence of a mandate became a permanent, protected feature of the system. Without filters for capability or character, the profile of the Indian politician has shifted. The Association for Democratic Reforms, or ADR, tracks the background of every elected official in the country. This chart compares the declared criminal cases of members of Parliament from 2009 to 2024. In 2024, nearly half, 46%, had active charges pending. The adjacent column shows 31% face serious charges: rape, murder, kidnapping, and corruption. The Election Commission is aware of this data, but they lack the legal authority to block a candidate simply because they are accused of a crime. Under Section 8 of the Representation of the People Act of 1951, a politician is only disqualified from holding office if they are officially convicted and sentenced to a minimum of 2 years in prison. This table outlines the exact backlog of the Indian judiciary. With over 4.4 crore pending cases in district and subordinate courts, a powerful candidate can afford the legal maneuvering to drag a trial out for decades, preventing a conviction. By utilizing vast financial resources and local muscle power to win elections, and exploiting a paralyzed court system to avoid jail, accused criminals legally embed themselves in the highest tiers of government. In the cramped rooms of competitive hubs like Kota and Mukherjee Nagar, young citizens prepare for exams that have a fraction of a % acceptance rate. They study knowing that a single clerical error or a delayed certificate can ruin their careers. Eventually, they look up and realize the people writing the laws determining their future have bypassed this process entirely. It creates a deep systemic cynicism. When the system visibly rewards brute force and deep pockets over merit, the motivation to build a life through honest education steadily dissolves. A modern nation must navigate complex global trade agreements, intricate economic policies, and nuanced diplomatic tensions. Managing these requires deep analytical capability, not just the ability to mobilize a crowd. When political power is entirely decoupled from education and ethics, the working class loses faith in the state's institutions. The drive that fuels a developing nation stalls. A core tenet of democracy is that the citizen, the praja, is the master. The elected representatives are public servants. Yet, voting patterns consistently show electorates selecting candidates based on caste alliances, religious polarization, or short-term freebies, completely ignoring the candidate's criminal history or administrative competence. The responsibility to filter out the unqualified rests entirely with the voter. It requires actively rejecting candidates who rely on muscle power and demanding that political parties nominate individuals with clean records. If the electorate continues to validate corruption with their ballots, the legal loopholes will remain open, and the least qualified individuals will rule the most educated generation in Indian history. The Constitution grants broad eligibility to ensure representation, but a thriving democracy requires voters to demand more, because at the highest levels of power, eligibility is not capability.